Good morning. Today we are doing lesson 4.6b, which is again modeling direct variation, or what we call proportional relationships. So in our box here, it says when the y-intercept is 0 in our equation, it is called a proportional relationship, or it goes directly through the origin. So like we said yesterday, we often just write this as y equals mx instead of y equals mx plus 0 because we don't need plus 0. That just tells us that whatever graph we have is going to go directly through the origin. So these first three questions just say, tell whether the equation represents a proportional relationship, and then identify the slope. So it would be smart if we would have these in our function form, y equals mx plus b, so that we can tell, is there a b there, or is it 0? So I'm going to solve this equation for y. I'm going to add 2x. So those eliminate, and we get y equals 2x plus 18. Well, if we look at our equation, y equals mx plus b, this one has a b of 18. So is that 0? Well, no, so this is not proportional. It does not go directly through the origin. And now that it's in this form, it's easy to identify our slope. Our slope is 2, or 2 over 1. Our middle equation is already solved for y. So in the form y equals mx plus b, b is 0, so yes, this is proportional. And our slope, easy to tell because it's already solved for y, is -3. And then the third one, we need to solve this for y. I'm going to divide by 7 to get y by itself. So we have y equals 5/7 x. So in the form y equals mx plus b, there is no b, so it's really plus 0. So yes, this is proportional. And our slope m is this fraction right here, 5/7. That would be our rise over run when we graph it. So here, we just want to review graphing a couple equations and then identify if it is proportional. You could probably identify if it's proportional before even graphing it, because this one, y equals mx plus b, b is a -4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're beginning on our y-axis at -4. That's not 0. So no, this is not proportional, but we still need to graph it. Our slope m is 5/1. So rise 5, go up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, over 1, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, over 1. I can't go down and left because there's not enough space on my graph to go down 5. I can only go down 3. But put your arrows on the end so you know your graph could go on forever. The second one, in the form y equals mx plus b, b is not there, so it's a 0. So we know, yes, this one is proportional. And we still need to graph it. Our slope is 5/1, so rise 5 and 1 to the right. And the opposite of up and right would be down 5 and 1 to the left. And there's our graph. Put your arrows on the ends, and we'll keep moving. Flip over to the next page. Again, just graph the proportional relationship. You should be getting good at this now. But it's just about these words too, understanding what those words mean and becoming familiar with them. We need to solve this one for y, so I'm going to divide by 2. 5 divided by 2 is not going to be a nice number, so leave it as a fraction. Y equals 5/2x. There is no plus b, so we know it's plus 0. So I'm going to graph our y-intercept there. And then rise over run, rise 5, run 2. Remember, always up and down first, then left to right. Instead of up and right, we can go down 5 and 2 to the left. And then draw your line through it. This next one, I would like for you to try on your own here, and then click play, see if you got it right. We need a 1 there, that's really a -1x, and we want y by itself so we can graph it, so divide by 4. And we have y equals -1/4 x. There is not a b, so we know it's plus 0. You don't need to write it. If you just know it's 0, you can put your dot there to begin with. And our slope is a negative 1. That means we're going down 1 and then 4 to the right. And the opposite of down and right would be up and left. And then draw your line through. Hopefully this is becoming a habit, graphing y equals mx plus b. All right, here's a little bit different question. It says, write the equation of the proportional relationship, then find the value of y when x is 10. So first we need an equation. We know our equation is in the form y equals mx plus b. And we know this graph begins at 0, so we know that's plus 0. So all we need to find is m, our slope. We have 2 points here, so we can just count our slope, rise over run. So we're going down 2, so that's a negative 2, and 1, 2 to the right. 2 over 2 is just negative 1. If you went the other way and went rise 2 this way, and going to the left would be negative 2. So you will still get a negative 1 for your slope. Doesn't really matter which way you go about doing it. You just need to remember if you're going to the left, it's negative. And down is negative. So our equation, we have y equals, our slope was negative 1 times x plus 0. So there's our equation, the first answer. Then find the value of y when x is 10. So they want us to figure out what is y going to be over here if we plug in for x the number 10. That would tell us on our graph if we were to extend, I'm going to erase this for a minute here, if we were to extend our x-axis over to 10, where would we be on our line? And instead of guessing down here where it might be, we're just going to plug it into our equation. So we have y equals negative 1 times 10 plus 0. Well, negative 1 times 10 is just negative 10. Negative 10 plus 0 is negative 10. So y equals negative 10 when x is 10. Let's try the next one. There will be a couple like this in your homework. We need the equation y equals mx plus b. We know b is 0. We just need to find our slope now. And they gave us another point up here, so we're going to count our slope. Rise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And run 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have y equals 5/4 x plus 0. And then plug in when x is 10, we need to figure out what's y. So 5/4 times 10 plus 0. We don't really need plus 0. If you want to just get rid of it, that's fine. So this is really 10 over 1, so we have 5 times 10 is 50. 4 times 1 is 4. 50 divided by 4 is not going to be a nice whole number. It's going to give you 12.5. 50 divided by 2 will give you 25. Divided by 2 again will give you 12.5. So y is 12.5 when x is 10. All right, we do have one more slide left, and this part is important. It's a little bit different because we're just going to be using our equation, y equals mx plus b, but we know b is 0, so we're just going to leave that part gone. It says, tell whether the table represents a proportional relationship, meaning y varies directly with x. If so, write the equation. So if we have a y value and an x value, we can use that to find our slope m from a table. All we have to do is first solve this equation for m. So if I'm going to solve this equation for m, that means we want m all by itself. So those are multiplying. If I want m by itself, the opposite of multiplying by x would be dividing by x. So x over x eliminates, and our slope is y over x. So we're going to take whatever our y value is and divide it by x. So for example here, we're going to take y is 5, and we're going to divide it by x, which is 1. 5 over 1. 5 divided by 1 is just 5. We need to see, does that pattern continue for every set of x and y's? If it does, that's telling you our slope is a constant or a straight line on our graph. If it's not the same number every time, they're telling us our slope is changing. Like it's 5 and then it's 0 and then it's 2 or whatever. We want a nice straight line when we graph, meaning our slope is the same the whole length of the graph. So if we continue to do y divided by x, we have 10 divided by 2, which is 5. Those are equal so far. If we continue, 15 divided by 3, yep, that's 5. 20 divided by 4, yep, that's 5. And 30 divided by 6, yes, that's 5. So because our slope is the same, we need to write an equation. We know this is our slope, what we just found, m. So our equation would be simply y equals 5x. You're just taking your equation from the beginning, y equals mx, and plugging in your m, 5. Let's try another one. Taking y, and we're dividing it by x. So we have negative 2 divided by negative 3. While two negatives are going to make a positive, 2/3 is just 2/3. If you converted it to a decimal, it would be 0.6 repeating. If we plug in our next one, 0 divided by negative 1, well, 0 divided by anything is 0. Are those equal? Well, no. So this is telling us that this is not proportional. So we can't even make an equation because we would need b. We did learn in the past how to actually write that equation, but for now, we're just deciding whether it's proportional or not. So let's take a look at the next one. Taking y and dividing it by x. 6 divided by 1 is 6. Y divided by x, 12 divided by 2 is 6. 18 divided by 3 is 6. You guys see the pattern here. This one is proportional. So our equation would be y equals 6x. We're taking our equation y equals mx plus b and plugging in our slope, which is what we just found, remember? Alright, last one here. We're taking y and we're dividing it by x. Negative 12 over 4. If we plug these in, well, 12 divided by 4 is negative 3. Oops, this was negative 2, positive 3. 6 divided by 8 is going to give us a decimal. It's 3/4 or 0.75. Those are not equal to each other. I don't even need to keep plugging in any more of these because I know they're not equal. So no, this is not proportional. You will have a couple questions like that on your homework. All you're doing is taking y and dividing by x to find your slope. So like I said, your homework on the back side and the bottom, there are 4 questions just like that.